Hello, I'm Dr. Amelia Kelley. I'm a trauma-informed therapist, author, and now podcaster, and I'm so excited to talk to you today. I love to explore anything related to mental health, self-empowerment, and recovering from abuse and overcoming trauma. And I just can't wait to chat with you about our topic today.
Hi, I'm Jeanne. I'm the CEO and founder of Figgy Life and Beauty. We specialize in super gentle skincare for sensitive souls like me, and I am an anxious overachiever with panic disorder.
Mhm.
So there you have it from the two of us. I am so excited to get into this episode today, but how's your week been going? What's been happening in your life?
Like, it's funny whenever I have to think, how has my week been going? It's been a pretty busy week. I would
Mm-hmm.
say it was interesting because I had a request. This was such an HSP moment. The other day, I had a request from someone in my life, texted me at about 10 and said,
At
I know
night?
that, yes,
Oh, I'm
yes.
sleeping. I'm in
Okay,
the.
well, we should definitely do an episode about about revenge insomnia because I am a revenge insomniac, so I was still up. But in the text, they said, I remember you saying after the kids go to bed, you have me time. So I was wondering if you could chat. It was kind of like, no, no, me time.
Yeah, let's just revisit the definition of me time. I think it's kind of in the title. It's
I know. So I had to set a boundary, but it was interesting. I found myself instead of just saying, no, sorry, not able to chat now. I felt the need to recount everything I had 8 sessions, 2 meetings, this and that. And then I set the boundary. And I'm like, I wonder what it would be like if I didn't feel the need to explain myself and then set the boundary.
mm,
So I found that
mm.
to be a really interesting moment socially.
Yeah, that's so strange. I get home in the evenings and I immediately put my phones in a different room so that I'm
Mm.
not looking at them and getting stressed out by text maybe like this because
Mhm.
I would totally feel bad and just start, chatting with them and giving them all of my energy. I'm so bad at the fear of conflict whole thing. So
I
that's
know.
crazy though. Me time.
Yeah.
That is strange. Yeah,
Did you
I've
get
had
to have any me time this week? How was your week?
no, me time was a huge non-existent factor in my week
Oh
because
no.
it's just been one of those weeks. Do you ever have those weeks where it just feels like you're drowning? Like you're so overwhelmed, and it feels like the
Mhm.
more you do and the faster you work, the more behind you get. Like it's not like you're
Mhm.
getting in front of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just like a whole bunch of things because it's school holidays here because of the Carnival
Mhm.
holiday.
Mhm.
And my husband's been traveling, so I've been alone. And it's like taking Lily to summer camp every day and getting her back, and she doesn't want to be there, and you feel like such a bad mom because you don't want to put her somewhere she doesn't want to be. And yeah, so it's just been an overwhelming week, but I'm super happy to be here, and I'm really glad we get to discuss this. So tell us more
Me
about this Super
too.
Friends. You read about it? You read an article about it?
Yes, in The Atlantic, which is a really great publication that has very interesting articles. I don't even know if it's a new publication because I'm just starting to see all these great articles coming out from it. And it was talking about those people that you know who just easily, even into adulthood, can just make and keep. The keep part is important. Make and keep friends. And it almost seems effortless as opposed to the very genuine, I don't want to say complaint, but issue, conundrum with making friends when you're not in these beautiful bubbles that kids and young adults are given socially with school. And
Mm.
it unpacked what are the specific traits or things that make someone a little bit more easily able to make friends. And I think also when I read it, I was thinking about HSPs and how there's this other layer to sensitivity with that when you're so deeply conscientious and you absorb everyone's energy. So I
Mm.
thought this would be a really interesting one to unpack because friendships and relationships are a big part of recovering from trauma or feeling safe or being able to feel empowered in general. So, how do you feel like you are on the spectrum? So they said super friend. I almost feel like we need to come up with, so there's super friend, and then what would the middle be? And then what would it be for someone who really struggles? What do you think? So the middle.
Well, I think before I answer that, can you just define to me what they meant with super friends? It's just somebody that makes friends easily and loves to have many friends.
Essentially, someone who doesn't struggle to make and keep, someone who easily can relate, almost can shapeshift mentally in different scenarios, someone who can is highly adaptable to different types of people. It's
Okay.
which can
Yeah,
be really
okay.
cumbersome as an adult because I listened to one of Glennon Doyle's podcasts recently about aging, and the guest said something interesting that as we age, we become more and more interesting. We become more different from each other.
Mm.
And so, likewise, you can imagine how if someone is more closed minded or less adaptable, it would be more and more difficult the older you get to make friends.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you said that because I'm thinking about everything you're saying, and I'm definitely on the way extreme other side of the scale. I really struggle to make friends. I
Mm.
love my own company. I prefer it.
Mhm.
But for me, when I was younger, I don't think I had so much of an issue. It's definitely become worse since I've been older. It's become a lot worse since my panic disorder diagnosis.
Mm.
And then, of course, we immigrated to a new country, and
Mm.
it wasn't our native language. We had to learn a third language, which is Portuguese.
I don't even know too. Good for you.
And we made the permanent move 2 weeks before the huge global COVID lockdown. So
Oh,
we
no.
didn't have an opportunity to make friends and to go out and meet new people. Um, But then again, on the flip side, I'm thinking the move was easy to us because we didn't have a lot holding us back in South Africa friends wise. We don't have a lot of friends because we don't make friends easily.
Mm.
Um, and I think I don't make friends easily because I'm not good in social situations. They stress me
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
And I don't function well in relationships where the core foundation of the relationship makes me feel safe. I need to feel safe in a relationship. So I would have had, I can think of so many people that have come into my life and that have been there for a season and then nothing bad happened. We just lost touch and all of that. And they would often tell me, um, it feels like I never opened up to them. You know, like we had great times together and great conversations, but like there was always a deeper level to me that they never had access to. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely on the way other end of that scale. But I'm thinking you're on
Yeah.
the flip side. Like,
Yeah, it's funny to call yourself super anything, but I would consider myself a super friend, and I think my friends can attest to that. Um, I I would say I have technically always found it, I don't want to say easy to make friends, but I enjoy it. There's something very exhilarating to me about making friends. I think I had joked with you or someone recently that some people collect stamps, some people collect.
okay, sorry, I'm just gonna tell the audience like there's something weird going on with my lights, and I don't even think it would help if I like stop the recording to make it better. So can you please bear with us?
Yeah. We'll just pretend you have fireworks because it's
Yes.
carnival.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Um, But as far as friends, some people have different things they love collecting, but for me, I joke that I love collecting people. Like I love
Mm.
the idea of all the different interesting interactions with different friends. I feel very fulfilled when I have friends around within good reason, which we've talked about because didn't I also say at 10 o'clock, don't talk to me? So
Mhm.
on a weeknight. Um, but yeah, I think I would consider myself that, and I enjoy it, and there's something I find fulfilling about it. And I'm hoping through us unpacking this, maybe some of the things that I find exhilarating or I don't want to say easy, but they come natural. I think that's a good way
Yeah.
to put it. They come natural to me. Um, I wonder if after the episode, you might even take one of the things that I do and go try and see what happens. Try it on for size.
Yeah, for
And then come
sure.
back
I'd
and
be
tell
happy
everyone how it
to.
goes.
Well, you said that there were certain things or certain
Mhm.
characteristics that you associate with somebody that is like you are, like making friends easy in the
Mhm.
super friend category. What are those things? Because obviously you identify with those. Or
Mhm.
did you identify with it and feel like, yeah, I do this. I can see myself in this.
Absolutely. So I had pulled up for us to chat about secure attachment. So the baseline secure attachment is kind of like the special sauce when it
Mhm.
comes to being a super friend. And and essentially also super friend, you can be a super friend, but we're talking about the super ability to make friends and keep them.
Yeah.
So looking at this here, things like ability to empathize, which I find you very empathetic, but I could see if someone is really feeling unsafe or uncentered, it's hard to be in that place of empathy if you're feeling uncentered. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. But usually for me, it's more like people sense this ability I have to be so empathetic.
Mhm.
And then I'm like their safe space to just unload everything. And they
Right.
feel so good once they've spent time with me. And I am completely drained and an emotional wreck. So it's
Mhm.
more that part. Like, I don't know how to set boundaries on my empathy or
Right.
how to switch it off and not completely personally take it on myself. I can't make
Yes.
that distinction.
The word boundaries is the key there.
Mm.
So, empathy is interesting because research shows that empathy actually has a negative impact on our immune system and a negative
Oh, I believe
impact.
that.
Yes, it reduces immune function. It increases heart rate. It increases instances of chronic pain. It can make us feel panicked, even. Um,
I believe it.
yeah.
I've had instances like that where I've had
Hmm.
like a particularly difficult like visit or a conversation, or a friend had come over and she shared something difficult, and it's just natural to me to do everything that I possibly can to be completely in that moment with her and
Hmm.
help as much as I can. And it's happened to me where I've had panic attacks as soon as the friend leaves,
Mm.
or I've become physically ill, like I came down with a really bad flu or some kind of digestive issue.
Wow.
I believe that
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. And so you also said do something you feel the desire to help
Yeah.
in whatever scenario. The interesting thing is that compassion is different. Compassion actually leads us to action,
Hmm.
and compassion improves our immune function.
Oh, wow.
Right. So let's say, for instance, there's so many conflicts going on in the world right now that we can imagine that we can't touch, right? That we don't have a direct impact on. And so we can have empathy for those people and the situations and the conflicts occurring, and it can hurt, especially as an HSP. It can
Mm.
hurt to have that empathy because we can envision how painful their experiences are. The compassion piece drives us to feel that we can have an impact. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to contact our political figures and make a dent in the decisions they're making. But something as simple as compassion meditation
Mm.
can have a positive impact on our immune function and allow us to feel like we're doing something, even if we're not physically going and doing something.
Hmm.
And you can see
Okay,
how
that's interesting.
yeah, that's a tricky thing when you're navigating relationships, friendships.
Hmm.
But you said a word that is so fundamental to secure attachment, and it's boundaries.
Yeah.
And having the ability to set boundaries when necessary is actually a big part of being a super friend.
But how do you do that though? Because I think in a previous episode you told us about this boundary you had set on your in your wedding party, and I still
Mhm.
said to you like I would have never done that because I would be so scared of the conflict, the possible
Mhm.
conflict that would invoke. How do you like for me just thinking about it makes me anxious, right? Because all of
Mhm.
my previous experiences with setting boundaries have ended so miserably and so
Right.
horribly, but there
Mhm.
are many other things that play into that. So how do you do that without stressing out that you're going to hurt somebody's feelings or they're going to be angry at you? Because obviously it
Mhm.
works for you. You have so many friends and
Mhm.
you love having many friends.
Mhm. I think, and I like that you added you have friends and you enjoy having friends.
Yeah.
And I think a part of that is the boundaries. If I was just an open vessel all the time, taking in everyone's energy, I couldn't have as many. And I do have, there's levels. There's people that, and sometimes people refer to it as like kind of the inner circle, outer circle, and then kind of like the acquaintances, so to speak. Every single friend is not going to know every single thing going on in my life. I have to have boundaries when it comes to that.
Mm.
I think honestly, practice and repetition. I have a very visceral memory of being, I want to say in high school or something, and not liking something my friend was doing and feeling so freaked out and overwhelmed by the idea of confronting her. But something, whether it was probably a message I had received about boundary setting, a healthy one, a healthy message, that I told myself, I have to do this until it's not uncomfortable.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but that's the key thing though, I think that you're doing differently. I think you're going into these relationships with a good boundary foundation set.
Mm.
And I think that's a big part of why I am not on your side of the scale and I prefer not to have friends,
Mhm.
or it's difficult for me to make many friends.
Mhm.
Um I don't I think I most people in my life, most of the relationships that I've built have been built on the wrong principles and the wrong
Mm.
foundations because that is what I've been taught. I never knew
Mhm.
anything different until I
Mhm.
started my own self exploration and healing journey. But with many of those relationships, it's now almost kind of too late, because they entered into this social contract with me, expecting something from me and expecting me to be a certain way. And just because I'm ready to say boundaries or do it differently does not at all mean that they are willing to accept it. And I've lost a lot of friends because of that.
Mm.
And I've lost a lot of close relationships that were definitely not good for me, but because of that, because I don't
Mhm.
enter the relationship, I think, with the best foundation set in terms of boundaries. I enter it as an open vessel, like, here I am, take everything you need from me. You want more? I'll give you more. Like, is there anything else I can help you with? Okay, cool. I'll make myself sick in order to help you. And
Mm.
that's like almost like what you teach your child. You're setting these boundaries of how they are to interact with you and how they see you in this
Right.
relationship. And then you change the rules of the game. And it's like, no, this is not kind of what I signed up for.
Mhm.
So, and it doesn't end up working out that well. But you
Yeah.
set the right foundations.
But that contract can be rewritten.
Probably I would say most people in my life not, but if I were to make new relationships, it
Mhm.
it could be.
I
It
think
could be.
this I think this is a really important thing for people to hear though too, that these relationships, and so whether or not you can rewrite these ones.
Mm.
But there's not there's nothing saying you can't give it a go. Rewrite the contract and see how they respond. You might be surprised. Of the 10 people you're envisioning, one of them may just, be there for you and be the friend that you do deserve. And then if you rewrite the contract and set the boundary and other people don't respond the way that they should, then you know. It's kind of like you're playing your cards, right? You put your cards out and you see what the other player is going to do, and you respond the way that if you set a boundary and they don't respect it, then that's good information.
Yeah.
But I would never want someone to think that just because you went into a relationship with the wrong foundation, and I don't even want to say wrong foundation, maybe a shaky foundation, um,
Mm.
that if you go in with a shaky foundation, you don't have the opportunity to say, well, for example, I'm definitely not a New Year's resolution person, but I love the idea of kind of taking stock. What is there anything? I think all year I'm resolving things, but taking stock, what's something I could do a little different? And not this year, but last year, I had resolved that I was going to stop being people's source of information all the time, which is funny because it's a big
Oh,
part
I
of,
can see that about you. I can
yeah.
definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that I love to do this for my work and for my life's purpose, and it's something I'm very passionate about, but you can see how it would start to affect my friendships, whereas you're that open vessel of empathy. I sometimes am an open vessel of information.
Yeah.
And so I told myself I was going to set this boundary. I received a text from my really good friend mid-January asking me for another friend's address. And we're all connected. They have each other's phone
Mhm.
numbers. And so I text her and I said, actually, my resolution this year is to not always be the source of information for people. So do you mind texting her directly?
Mhm.
And she responded fine. She said something like, oh, that's funny. I should have a resolution. And she got the address. I'm assuming. I never checked back. I made sure not to check back.
That's amazing. Like that would never even register in my mind
Hmm.
if I had made that exact resolution and somebody would have asked me that. S- It's just I think how we function differently perhaps. It's not, and I agree with you. It's not to say that when you enter into a relationship you cannot change it. That's not at all what it is. It's just
Right.
I come from many difficult and complicated relationships.
Hmm.
And I've had to learn that many of these heartbreakingly so is better for me to not be a part of it because
Hmm.
the the thing about the setting the boundaries with many of those were I call it the clawback,
The
where
clawback. Okay.
yeah, where you set the boundary and you think these people are going to freak out and they don't. You're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, awesome. That went great. That went awesome." And then they respect you more, they're nice, they ask about you, they're more in tune with you. And as soon as you're settled and you're comfortable again, you think this relationship's working, they start doing that again. And they start
Mm.
crossing your boundaries and you're going to have to reset it. And when you reset it, then it gets like verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, manipulative, and it
Mm.
gets so much worse.
Mhm.
So I'm coming from that specific frame of reference, but I'm also
Yeah.
not at all saying that it's impossible to set those boundaries. And it's definitely something that I'm exploring within myself and working on to be able to do that better and to have the courage to do that.
I think that's really not only super honest and authentic, and I love that you shared that, but it's a good example of why this isn't always easy for everyone
Mm,
and why it can feel really scary to set boundaries. Um, I mean, I was modeled that it was okay to set boundaries, and so that's why I'm able to set boundaries in certain ways. There are plenty of ways that I've had to continue to evolve and learn that boundaries
mm,
are okay, and to see that good things come from boundaries. But that was certainly it's been an evolution. I wasn't always this comfortable doing that.
mm,
Um, and I definitely think back to a younger version of myself that wasn't as set in these boundaries. And I think my relationships are better now because of boundaries.
I
And these
believe you.
and these boundaries don't just have to be don't do this, don't do that. It can also be showing what you do like.
Mm.
and what you do prefer and what you do want. Boundaries can come in the form of positive information also.
I don't set the relationships with the right foundation, and I enter into the wrong types of relationships based on the
Mm,
examples of the relationships I've had in my life.
hmm.
And I've been becoming a lot more aware of that, because this is what
Yeah,
makes me end up in these situations. Like,
right,
they're not necessarily the right situations to be entering into in the first place.
right.
But it's hard for me to make that initial distinction because I don't
Hmm.
come from a very rich background of having good examples of that. Like,
Mm,
my message when I grew up was, you're the giver. You have to give the advice, you have to listen, you have to support, you have to, like, you can't be tired, you can't be angry, you can't be.
hmm.
So I don't have any other frame of reference for this.
Right.
Um, so I think that plays into it, right? And I think you have
Yeah.
a lot healthier kind of structure to this, where if you
Mhm.
enter into these relationships, you're perhaps in a better position to assess whether there even are red flags. Whereas I would be halfway through the relationship and I would go like, you know what? I've just done
Mm,
this again.
mm. Well, I do think it's helpful to maybe I'll use my imagination and ask you about potential red flags because I think for listeners to understand that there are things to look out for with when you're forming friendships. And I think that that's why setting a boundary really early on is very important because you need to be able to get that information. And a
Mhm.
boundary can also look like emotional individuation. It can look like just if you're talking to a new potential friend and they say they like this kind of music and you don't particularly like this kind of music, could you experiment in that moment with disagreeing? Could you
Mhm.
say right there, I hear you, but it's really not my preference. And then watch. See how the person receives your disagreement on such
Mhm.
a, mundane thing. For me, I feel like that's very telling. If I'm making a friend and they're very for any reason I notice they're closed-minded or they're prejudiced. Prejudice did come up actually as one of the traits that makes it difficult for someone to become a super friend. I don't find you prejudiced. I'm just putting that out there as one of the things because if you think of prejudice, how would you say it? Prejudicial? Prejudice type thinking. um, it's a narrow frame of reference and people are so different and unique and special and we're so complex. And the more prejudiced someone is with their thought patterns, the more narrow their preferences are and the more narrow, the more difficult it is, I think, to be kind of a super friend. I had
Mm.
my husband's best friend one day randomly was saying to me that he found it interesting how my friends that I have are so wildly different from each other. At the
Mhm.
foundation, they're all open-minded people. That's kind of like my get in pass. If you're not an open-minded person, we're not going to
Don't
have a
pass
lot.
go. Don't
Yeah, yeah,
collect
no passcode.
collect
Thank you.
$200.
Yep. Monopoly. But beyond that, that's kind of where it ends. Like from there, there's just so many different types of people, whether it be different genders, different ages, different races, different preferences, different jobs. I don't really have one narrow field. I do tend to really gravitate towards neurodiversity though. So people who are a little
Mm.
neurospicy tend to be a little more interesting to me. But at the foundation, I think finding out whether the person is okay with you having your own opinions
Mm.
is very important in the beginning stages of establishing that friendship foundation that you were talking about.
Yeah. And there again, like, for me, you were saying this example, if you ask the question, see how they respond.
Mhm.
My like default setting would be, oh, how can I make you feel more comfortable? What do you need from me?
Mm.
What can I bring you? What can I do for you? Like, and I will oftentimes kind of skim over these things and say, oh, but maybe they were just having a bad day. We should all give each other a chance, be kind to one another.
Which I love that too. I
Like
mean, that's a great trait, a great understanding to have and empathy to have.
yeah, but it can lead you into some difficult situations if you don't have the
Right.
necessary boundary. But
Mhm.
in terms of you also on the friendship scale, do you like having a lot of friends? Do you like to know that I have many friends? Or obviously, I don't think you're like the one person type of.
No, I mean, I really do like having a lot of friends. However, I only have a handful that I pour all my energy into, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So while, I joke that my child's birthday party might have 60 people at it because we have so many different families and friends that we're connected to. There is a point where I'm either really drawn to you and I'm going to pursue you often, or I'm drawn enough to you. I think you're great. I like having you around, but maybe I'm not going to be like really hyper connected. And it's
Mm.
because the couple friends that I have that I'm really connected to, I put a lot of energy into. My best friend I met when I was 1.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that is definitely.
Yeah. And she's an only child, so and I don't have a sister, so I think we kind of became that for each other, but we're also wildly different, her and I, even though we're both very you actually remind me of her a little bit now that I think about it. Big compliment because she's wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's for me, I actually kind of get a little bit anxious if I think of many friends, because I think for me friends and what I see in a friendship is so um you give so much emotionally, like the energy exhaustion from that is so
Mhm.
overwhelming for me. It doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be like that, but I think it comes back to my foundation of I like to be in relationships where I feel secure and safe
Of
and
course.
deeper relationships. So I'm okay with like one or two really, really good friends.
Mhm.
Um, but also, yeah, I can easily like this week it happened to me where I would be getting ready for something and I would say, "Oh, I should probably get out of the house. When's the last time I left the Oh, I haven't been out of the house for 2 weeks."
Oh, wow.
That wouldn't even bother me. I wouldn't even be, like, depressed or feel like cabin fever.
Mhm.
So, I'm definitely on the lower amount of friends scale.
I think this is an interesting part of the topic, though, too, because the number of friends you have does not define whether or not you're a super friend.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome.
Really, yes. It's because everyone has different needs. So,
Mm,
because as we learned in our first episode, I'm a high sensation seeker, I
mhm.
like having a wide swath of friends to choose from depending on my mood and depending on
Yeah.
what I'm interested in doing that week or that month or what have you. So, someone who's a little bit more introverted feels fulfilled from just a handful of friends. There's even some research saying
Mm.
that we really can't expand too much of our empathic energy beyond, I want to say the number was like 6 or 7 people. Something, some number 10 or
Oh,
under, I
wow.
remember.
I
Yeah.
wonder, yeah, because I also read something about your kids' birthday parties, and you should
Mhm.
never invite more friends than the age they are because it's too overwhelming for
Well,
them.
I
They, like
failed.
you say, you can't expend your energy about. And we actually started doing that, and my daughter does so much better at her parties.
That's
Like
cute.
she used to get so overwhelmed and want to be,
Mhm.
but that makes sense now because you're saying
Mhm.
you can't expand your energy to more than you're able to give. And it makes sense. If you're 5 years old, get 5 friends. If you're six, get 6 friends. Like that's what you're able to give.
Mhm. That's really cute. And I wonder sometimes that nature nurture piece because my daughter is definitely an HSP, but she's been like hyper socialized. She's because
Yeah.
for instance, Super Bowl, this will probably air after, but Super Bowl is this Sunday in the States. And I was saying, I don't really feel like having a party. So let's just have this one family over. It's now evolved to 20 people.
Oh. Wow.
which is a
Okay.
small gathering for us. It's potluck, so I don't have to do as much. We're just ordering pizza. But, so it's funny. I think about if we weren't so social, would my highly sensitive daughter be as social? She actually, I
Yeah.
was so proud. You could have given her the Nobel Peace Prize in her um like the class awards last year. She got two awards. One was most likely to write a book, Be Still My Heart, and the other
Oh.
one was best friend to all.
Oh, that's so
I
cute.
know.
Oh.
I was like, "Can I have your awards?"
Oh, that's so cute.
So
Oh, I
I
love
wonder,
that.
how much of it is what you become accustomed to and used to
Yeah.
also. But
Yeah, your
I
foundations play a key role in how you address life as an adult and your relationships. I mean, it's just,
yeah.
I wish that more of us knew from an earlier age, like how to set those relationships, especially for your kids. It's so important because you take it through the rest of your life. It's something you always struggle with or do well or navigate bad or well, or it's very important.
And I think it's important too to know if, like, say you're a parent and you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh no, I'm an introvert. Am I not exposing
Yeah.
my child? My parents are both introverts, and they had maybe two or four people I remember them being friends with when I was growing up. This
Oh,
is,
wow.
yeah, this is not something that I learned through watching. This was something that luckily was not stifled in my personality, if that makes sense.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because extroverted or
So,
outgoing, they are not.
if you want to know more about Super Friends, or if you want us to talk about Friends again and have another episode, and I would love people to tell us what they want to hear and the questions that maybe came up for them, especially the different sides of the scale. Maybe we have some listeners that are lean more towards my scale or more towards your scale. It would be so interesting to have a good concept of that. But for now, before we close this episode, what are you celebrating today?
Ooh. Well, I think in a way I might be celebrating my friendships. I'm celebrating that if I have something deeply meaningful that's happened to me, that I've got that person I want to reach out to, or if I want professional advice, I have that other person, and that it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to have
Mm,
preferences. So that's my
mm.
celebration. What about you?
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm celebrating my family today. I think I'm
Mm,
really lucky to have such a good support structure because of, especially with everything that I'm trying to navigate and heal
mhm,
from. And especially that we've spoken about friends because my husband is my best friend and he's
mm.
been such a support structure for me. And I know that not all of us have that. So I'm going
That's
to go ahead
awesome.
and celebrate
Love it.
that. Okay, so we'll see you again next time on The Sensitivity Doctors. And I think we have an episode planned on socializing as an HSP that may fit in well to this one. So be sure to check out our next episodes launching next week. Bye.
Bye.